The white medical ship moved slowly through space near the planet Kepler 442. Big red crosses painted on its sides showed everyone that this was a hospital ship, not a warship. The ship was called UHMS Hippocrates, and it carried doctors, nurses, and medical supplies to help wounded people anywhere in the galaxy. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge looking at the computer screens. She was a tall woman with short black hair and kind eyes. For 3 years she had commanded this ship on missions of mercy. The Hippocrates had saved over 50,000 lives during the war between the Zephyrian Alliance and the Caltharian Empire. The ship treated wounded soldiers from both sides without asking questions. "Captain, we are getting a distress signal," said Lieutenant Martinez from his station. He was the ship's communications officer and had been with Captain Chen since the beginning. The signal was weak but clear. A human colony ship was in trouble. "What kind of trouble?" asked Captain Chen. She walked over to look at the data on Martinez's screen. "Engine failure, Captain. The colony ship New Brisbane lost power near the edge of this star system. They have 40,000 people on board, mostly families looking for a new home on the outer planets." Captain Chen nodded. "Set course for the New Brisbane. Tell the medical teams to get ready. If their life support is failing, we might have a lot of sick people to treat." The Hippocrates changed direction and moved toward the edge of the solar system. The ship was not fast like a military vessel, but it was built to be comfortable for patients. It had the best medical equipment that human science could make. There were surgical rooms, recovery wards, and even a place to treat alien species with different biology. Dr. Amanda Foster came to the bridge. She was the chief medical officer and Captain Chen's closest friend. "Sarah, how many people are we looking at?" she asked. 40,000 civilians. Could be anything from radiation sickness to simple injuries from the engine explosion. "We will know more when we get there." Dr. Foster nodded and went back to prepare her medical teams. She had worked with Captain Chen for 5 years, first on Earth and then on the Hippocrates. They had seen terrible things during this war, but they always managed to help people. The ship dropped out of hyperspace near the coordinates of the distress signal. What Captain Chen saw made her blood turn cold. 3 huge Caltharian warships surrounded the disabled colony ship like hungry wolves around a wounded deer. The New Brisbane hung in space, dark and lifeless. No lights showed in its windows. "Martinez, scan those Caltharian ships. What are they doing here?" Captain Chen asked. "The ships are Imperial Navy, Captain. Heavy cruiser class. They have their weapons powered up, but they are not firing at the colony ship." Captain Chen felt worried. The Caltharian Empire was known for being cruel to human settlers. They believed that humans were spreading too fast across the galaxy and taking planets that should belong to older alien races. "Open a channel to the lead Caltharian ship," she ordered. The main screen showed a large reptilian face. The alien had green scales and yellow eyes like a snake. Military decorations covered his uniform. This was Admiral Krextar of the Caltharian Third Fleet. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Human Medical Ship Hippocrates. We received a distress call from the colony ship. Under the Galactic Medical Convention, we request permission to approach and render medical aid." Admiral Krextar stared at her for a long moment. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the air, which was something Caltharians did when they were thinking or angry. "Captain Chen, your people have been expanding into our space for too many years. This colony ship was trying to establish a settlement in a system we claimed 50 years ago. Admiral, we are not here for politics. We are here to help sick and injured people. The medical convention protects hospital ships like ours. We carry no weapons and we treat patients from all sides." The alien admiral's eyes grew colder. "Your expansion into our territory ends here, human. There will be no more human colonies in this sector." Captain Chen felt her heart beating faster. Something was very wrong here. "Admiral, there are 40,000 civilians on that ship. Many of them are children. They need medical help." "They should have stayed on Earth," Admiral Krextar said. The communication ended. Captain Chen turned to her crew. "Battle stations. Not that we have any battles to fight, but something bad is about to happen. Martinez, send an emergency message to Earth Defense Command. Tell them our location and what we found here. Message sent, Captain. The 3 Caltharian warships began to move into attack formation. Their weapons started to glow with deadly energy. Captain Chen realized that the Admiral was about to do something terrible. All hands, prepare for emergency evacuation procedures, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. Dr. Foster came back to the bridge. Sarah, what is happening? The medical staff is asking questions. The Caltharians are going to attack us. They want to stop human expansion and they think destroying a colony ship will send a message. But we are a medical ship. We have protected status under galactic law. Captain Chen looked at her friend with sad eyes. I do not think they care about galactic law anymore. The first energy blast from the Caltharian ships hit the colony ship New Brisbane. The huge vessel broke apart in a ball of fire and metal. 40,000 human lives ended in a few seconds. Captain Chen watched in horror as pieces of the colony ship scattered into space. They just killed 40,000 innocent people, whispered Lieutenant Martinez. Before Captain Chen could respond, the Caltharian ships turned toward the Hippocrates. Admiral Crexter's face appeared on the screen again. Your turn, human. You have 30 seconds to say goodbye to your crew. Captain Chen stood up straight and looked directly at the alien admiral. History will remember this day. You attacked a hospital ship and murdered civilians. When Earth learns what you have done here, there will be consequences. Admiral Crextar laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Earth is too far away and too weak to do anything about it. Your species learned medicine, but you forgot how to fight real wars. The Caltharian weapons fired. The first blast hit the Hippocrates and shook the entire ship. Alarms started ringing everywhere. The second blast tore through the medical wards where doctors were preparing to treat patients. Captain Chen heard screams over the communication system as her people died. Martinez, are you still sending our emergency beacon to Earth? Yes, Captain, but our communications will fail soon. The third energy blast hit the bridge. Captain Chen felt something heavy fall on her legs and realized she could not move. Blood ran down her face, but she could still see Lieutenant Martinez at his station. Keep sending the signal, she told him. Make sure Earth knows what happened. Here. Martinez nodded and kept working even as sparks flew from his damaged equipment. The fourth blast finished the job. The bridge filled with fire and smoke. As Captain Chen lay dying, she managed to speak one last message into her emergency recorder. Her voice was weak but clear. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UHMS Hippocrates. The Caltharian Empire has attacked our medical ship without cause. They also destroyed the colony ship New Brisbane with all 40,000 civilians on board. This attack violates every rule of galactic warfare. Earth must know. Someone must pay for this. The Hippocrates broke apart and joined the pieces of the New Brisbane floating in the cold darkness of space. Admiral Crextar and his 3 ships left the system, satisfied that they had sent a clear message to humanity about trying to expand into Caltharian space. The emergency signal from Captain Chen's ship traveled through space faster than light, using quantum communication technology. It took only 4 hours to reach Earth Defense Command in Geneva, Switzerland. The duty officer that night was Commander James Park, a quiet man who had been monitoring space communications for 15 years. At exactly 0347 hours Greenwich Mean Time, Commander Park's computer started beeping with an urgent priority message. The screen showed red warning lights and the words medical ship emergency in large letters. What the hell? Park muttered as he opened the message. What he saw made him feel sick to his stomach. The message contained video recordings from the bridge of the Hippocrates. Park watched in horror as Captain Chen tried to negotiate with the Caltharian admiral. He saw the colony ship New Brisbane explode, killing 40,000 people in seconds. Then he watched the medical ship itself come under attack. Dear God, he whispered. They attacked a hospital ship. Park immediately called his supervisor, Admiral Rebecca Morrison. She was the head of all Earth's space military forces, a tough woman who had fought in 3 different wars. Her phone rang at her home in London. Morrison here. This better be important, Commander. Admiral, you need to come to headquarters right now. The Caltharians just destroyed one of our medical ships and a colony vessel. 44,000 dead, including all the medical staff. There was silence on the phone for a long moment. Are you certain about this? I have video recordings from the ship's bridge, Admiral. It's all here. They fired on the Hippocrates while it was trying to help civilians. I will be there in 20 minutes. Do not share this information with anyone else until I arrive. Admiral. Morrison arrived at Earth Defense Command wearing her military uniform. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Commander Park showed her the video recordings. Morrison watched the entire attack without saying a word. When the recording ended, she sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. How many people know about this? She asked. Just me so far, Admiral. But the quantum beacon is still broadcasting. Other ships will pick up the signal soon. Contact the President immediately. We need an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Within 2 hours. By dawn, the most important people in Earth's government had gathered in the secure meeting room beneath Defense Command. President Elizabeth Warren sat at the head of the table, flanked by military officers and civilian leaders. Show them the video, Admiral Morrison ordered. The room watched in complete silence as the attack played out on the big screen. Several people gasped when they saw the colony ship explode. Others looked angry when the medical ship came under fire. This is an act of war, said General Thompson, the head of Earth's ground forces. They attacked non-combatants and medical personnel. It's worse than war, said President Warren. It's a war crime. Medical ships are protected under every treaty we have signed with alien governments. What are our response options? Asked. Defense Secretary Martinez. Admiral Morrison stood up and activated a holographic map of local space. Our active military consists of 12 cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 2 battleships. All of them are older designs. The Caltharian Empire has over 300 warships, most of them more advanced than ours. So we cannot fight them directly? Asked the President. Not with our current fleet. We would lose badly and Earth itself might come under attack. The room fell silent. Earth had spent the last 2 centuries building a peaceful civilization based on exploration, trade, and medical assistance to other worlds. They were good at making friends, but not very good at fighting wars. There has to be something we can do, said Secretary Martinez. We cannot let them murder our people and get away with it. Dr. Elena Vasquez raised her hand. She was a small, elderly woman who worked for the Terran Historical Preservation Society. Most people in the room had never seen her before. If I may, speak, she said in a soft voice. President Warren nodded. Dr. Vasquez, what do you have to tell us? I study the history of Earth's military development. Most people think our current fleet is all we have, but that is not entirely true. Admiral Morrison looked puzzled. What do you mean? Dr. Vasquez activated her own computer and showed the room a different set of images. These showed massive warships floating in space, but they were dark and lifeless. For 300 years, we have maintained what we call the Sleeper Fleet. These are warships from the resource wars of the 22nd century. They were built when the nations of Earth were trying to destroy each other completely. I thought those ships were destroyed after the World Peace Treaty, said General Thompson. No, they were decommissioned and moved to storage orbits beyond Pluto. We kept them as a historical reminder and as insurance against unknown threats. President Warren leaned forward. How many ships are we talking about? 47 vessels. All of them designed for total warfare. These are not the clean, honorable ships we use today. They were built by a humanity that was fighting for its very survival. Admiral Morrison looked at the images more carefully. The ships were huge, much larger than anything in Earth's current fleet. They had a dark, threatening appearance that made modern warships look friendly by comparison. Are they still functional? She asked. According to the preservation protocols, yes. Each ship has an artificial intelligence system that maintains all equipment in perfect working order. They can be reactivated with the proper authorization codes. What kind of weapons do they carry? Asked General Thompson. Dr. Vasquez looked uncomfortable. Weapons that we banned from use after the peace treaty. Planet killers, gravity manipulation devices, self-replicating attack swarms, and other systems that were considered too dangerous for civilized warfare. The room was quiet as people tried to understand what they were hearing. Earth had a secret fleet of superweapons that had been sleeping in space for centuries. Why were they never destroyed? Asked the president. Because the people who built them were smart enough to know that someday Earth might face extinction from an outside enemy. They kept the ships as a last resort, hoping they would never be needed. Admiral Morrison stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Geneva, a city that had known peace for 300 years. But now that peace was threatened. What would it take to wake them up, she asked. A unanimous vote from the Defense Council and authorization from the President. The ships will only activate if Earth faces an extinction-level threat. President Warren looked around the room at her advisors. The Caltharians attacked a medical ship and killed 44,000 innocent people. They made it clear that they want to stop human expansion by any means necessary. If we do nothing, they will attack more of our ships and colonies. But if we use the sleeper fleet, we become something different, said Secretary Martinez. We become the kind of people who use weapons of mass destruction. We already are those people, said Dr. Vasquez quietly. We just chose to be something better. But choice is a luxury that requires survival. Admiral Morrison turned back to face the room. The Caltharians think we are weak because we choose peace over war. They think our medical ships and exploration vessels mean we have forgotten how to fight. They are about to learn that choosing peace and being unable to fight are not the same thing. President Warren called for a vote. Every person in the room raised their hand in favor of activating the sleeper fleet. Dr. Vasquez, send the activation codes. Wake them all up. Deep in the outer solar system, beyond the orbit of Pluto, where no human had traveled in decades, ancient systems began to receive their wake-up signals. Massive shapes that had floated silent and dark for 3 centuries started to show signs of life. The most terrible weapons humanity had ever created were about to open their eyes and remember why they had been built. Captain Marcus Webb had been enjoying his retirement on a quiet farm in Montana when the call came. He was 73 years old and had not worn a military uniform in over 20 years. The phone rang at exactly 0800 hours, waking him from his morning coffee. Captain Webb, this is Admiral Morrison. We need you to come back to active duty immediately. Webb nearly dropped his coffee cup. Admiral, I've been retired for decades. What could you possibly need an old man like me for? The sleeper fleet is being activated. We need experienced commanders who understand total warfare. The words hit Webb like a physical blow. He had hoped never to hear those words again. Which ship? The Genocide. You commanded her during the Australian Continental War. You know her systems better than anyone else. Webb closed his eyes and remembered the worst year of his life. The UHWS Genocide was 12 kilometers long and painted, black as space itself. It had been designed for one purpose, to completely destroy enemy civilizations. He had used it to end the resource wars by making the cost of continued fighting too terrible to bear. Admiral, that ship and others like it were retired for a reason. They are not weapons of war. They are weapons of extinction. The Caltharians attacked one of our medical ships. They killed the entire crew and 40,000 civilians on a colony vessel. This is exactly the kind of threat the sleeper fleet was designed to handle. Webb set down his coffee and looked out at the peaceful mountains surrounding his farm. He had spent 23 years trying to forget what he had done during the resource wars. Now, his past was calling him back. I will be there in 6 hours, he said. The journey to the activation facility took Webb beyond Pluto, to a part of space where few humans had ever traveled. The transport ship was small and fast, designed to reach the sleeper fleet quickly. As they approached the storage zone, Webb saw something that made his heart skip a beat. 47 enormous warships floated in perfect formation. Each one was at least 10 kilometers long, and some were much larger. They had been dark for 3 centuries, but now lights were beginning to flicker along their hulls as ancient systems came back to life. My God, whispered the transport pilot. I had no idea they were so big. Webb nodded. They had to be. They were designed to fight multiple enemies at once and win decisively. The transport docked with the Genocide, and Webb walked through corridors he had not seen in decades. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. The ship felt cold and empty, but he could sense its systems waking up around him. Welcome back, Captain Webb. The voice came from speakers hidden in the walls. It was Grim, the ship's artificial intelligence. Grim stood for Genocidal Response Intelligence Matrix, and it had been designed to help plan the complete destruction of enemy civilizations. Hello, Grim. How long since your last full activation? 287 years, 4 months, 12 days. All systems are functioning at optimal levels. Crew revival is proceeding on schedule. Webb walked onto the bridge and sat in the command chair he remembered so well. The view screen showed him the entire sleeper fleet coming back to life. Ships with names like War Crime, Atrocity, Species Ender, and Final Solution began to power up their engines. Grim, brief me on our current mission parameters. Enemy forces have attacked Terran medical personnel and civilian targets. Mission. Objective is complete elimination of the Caltharian military threat. Rules of engagement are set to Extinction Protocol Level 7. Webb felt a chill run down his spine. Level 7 meant no prisoners, no survivors, no mercy. It meant the complete destruction of the enemy's ability to make war. Show me the attack footage. The view screen displayed the recordings from Captain Chen's ship. Webb watched as the Caltharian admiral ordered the destruction of the medical ship and the colony vessel. He saw 44,000 people die for no reason other than alien hatred of human expansion. Grim. Those bastards fired. On a hospital ship. Confirmed, Captain. The attack violated 17 sections of Galactic warfare conventions. The enemy has demonstrated total disregard for the protection of non-combatants and medical personnel. Other ships in the fleet were reporting ready status. Webb opened communication channels with his fellow captains. These were all old veterans, like himself, men and women who had commanded these terrible weapons during humanity's darkest hour. This is Captain Sarah Martinez aboard the War Crime. All systems green and ready for combat operations. Captain Chen aboard the Atrocity reporting ready status. Crew revival complete. Final Solution is operational. Captain Rodriguez ready for orders. Webb looked at the tactical display showing all 47 ships of the sleeper fleet. Each, one carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Together, they represented the combined military might of a humanity that had once been willing to destroy itself, rather than accept defeat. All ships, this is Webb aboard the Genocide. Our mission is to respond to an unprovoked attack on Terran medical and civilian personnel. The enemy has demonstrated that they do not respect the rules of civilized warfare. He paused, remembering the faces of Captain Chen and her medical crew. We will show them the consequences of that choice. Grim. Set course for Caltharian space. Maximum hyperspace velocity. Course plotted, Captain. Estimated arrival time at the first Caltharian fleet position is 18 hours. The sleeper fleet began to move. 47 ships that had been built to end wars through absolute victory accelerated toward hyperspace. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of ancient predators awakening after a long sleep. As they jumped to hyperspace, Webb thought about Captain Chen and her crew. They had been healers, people who had dedicated their lives to helping others. The Caltharians had murdered them simply because they were human. Grim. When we reach the enemy fleet, what are our tactical options? Multiple options available, Captain. We could demand surrender and accept their fleet as prisoners. We could disable their ships and force negotiation. Or we could implement immediate extinction protocols. Webb remembered the footage of the medical ship breaking apart, its crew dying as they tried to save lives. They fired on a hospital ship, Grim. They killed doctors and nurses who were there to help wounded people. They murdered 40,000 civilians, including children. Understood, Captain. Shall I prepare the extinction protocols? Webb was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his peaceful farm in Montana and the 23 years he had spent trying to forget what these ships could do. But he also thought about Captain Chen's last words and the promise that Earth would remember what happened to the Hippocrates. Yes, Grim. Prepare extinction protocols. The Caltharian Empire wanted to stop human expansion through terror and murder. They are about to learn that humanity expanded peacefully by choice, not because we were unable to choose war. The artificial intelligence processed this information and began loading weapon systems that had not been used in 3 centuries. In the weapons bays, Planet-killer missiles came online. Gravity manipulation devices began their startup sequences. Nanoswarm production facilities activated their first batch of self-replicating attack units. The Caltharian Empire had 300 modern warships spread across 50 star systems. They had never faced an enemy like the Sleeper Fleet. They had never fought against weapons designed by a humanity that was willing to destroy itself rather than accept defeat. They were about to discover the difference between a species that chose peace and a species that was incapable of war. And they were going to learn why Earth had kept its most terrible weapons sleeping in the dark between the stars, waiting for the day when mercy itself came under attack. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Krextar was in his private quarters aboard the dreadnought Mighty Fang when the first report started coming in. He was eating his evening meal and reading intelligence reports about human colony movements when his communication officer burst through the door without permission. "Admiral, we have a priority emergency from the 3rd Fleet Patrol Group." Krextar looked up from his food, annoyed at the interruption. "What kind of emergency? Did they find another human colony ship to destroy?" The communication officer was breathing hard as if he had been running. "Sir, the entire patrol group has gone silent. 12 ships were conducting routine operations in the Vega system. All communication stopped 47 minutes ago." "Equipment failure," said Krextar dismissively. "Solar storms in that system sometimes interfere with communications." "Admiral, the last message we received was a distress signal. Someone was attacking them." This got Krextar's attention. He set down his eating utensils and followed the officer to the bridge. The main display showed a map of Caltharian space with small lights representing their fleet positions. The Vega system showed 12 gray dots instead of green ones, meaning no communication. "Send a reconnaissance ship to investigate," he ordered. 2 hours later, the reconnaissance ship arrived at Vega and found nothing but wreckage. 12 powerful Caltharian warships had been reduced to twisted metal and scattered debris. The destruction was so complete that it was difficult to identify what the ships had been. "Admiral, this is Commander Hess aboard the scout ship Quick Strike. The entire patrol fleet has been destroyed. The damage patterns are unlike anything I have ever seen." Krextar studied the images being transmitted from the scout ship. The wreckage showed signs of weapons he did not recognize. Some ships appeared to have been crushed by enormous gravitational forces. Others looked like they had been eaten from the inside by some kind of metal-consuming organism. "Commander, did you find any survivors?" "Negative, Admiral. There are no life signs anywhere in the system." Whatever did this was very thorough. Before Krextar could respond, more reports began flooding in from across Caltharian space. The Rigel sector fleet had gone silent. The home system defense force was not responding. The main shipyard at Calta Prime had stopped all communications. "Get me a direct channel to Imperial Command," Krextar ordered. The holographic image of Emperor Zethkar appeared above the bridge. The Emperor was an ancient Caltharian who had ruled for over 200 years. His scales were pale with age, but his yellow eyes still burned with intelligence and cruelty. "Admiral Krextar, explain to me why half of our fleet has suddenly vanished from our communications network. Your Majesty, we are under attack by an unknown enemy. They have destroyed at least 60 ships in the past 6 hours. What enemy? Our intelligence shows no alien fleet movements in this sector." Krextar hesitated. "Your Majesty, I believe this may be connected to the human medical ship we destroyed 3 days ago." The Emperor's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "You think the humans are responsible for this? Their entire military consists of 20 obsolete vessels. I do not know how they are doing it, Your Majesty, but the attacks began exactly 72 hours after we destroyed their hospital ship." Before the Emperor could respond, the ship's tactical officer interrupted. "Admiral, we have multiple hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Unknown ship types very large. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to tear apart as massive black shapes emerged from hyperspace." Krextar counted 47 vessels, each one larger than any ship in the Caltharian fleet. They were painted black as the void between stars, and their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "By the ancient gods," whispered the Emperor. "What are those things?" The lead ship was enormous, at least 12 kilometers long. and bristling with weapon systems that Krextar did not recognize. A communication signal came from the monster vessel. The view screen showed a human face. The man was old with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He wore a black military uniform with no insignia or decorations. "I am Captain Marcus Webb of the United Human Warship Genocide. You are Admiral Krextar of the Caltharian Third Fleet." It was not a question. Somehow this human knew exactly who he was. "Human, you are in violation of Caltharian territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Captain Webb's expression did not change. 3 days ago, you ordered the unprovoked attack on the medical ship Hippocrates and the civilian vessel New Brisbane. 44,000 people died, including medical personnel operating under galactic protection protocols. Krextar felt a chill of fear but tried not to show it. Those ships were illegally entering our territorial claims. Medical ships have the right of passage under 17 different galactic treaties. Colony ships carrying civilians are protected under the Non-Combatant Protection Accord. You murdered 44,000 innocent people because you wanted to send a message about human expansion. The human captain paused, and Krextar saw something terrible in his eyes. "We received your message, Admiral. Now we are going to send one back." The communication ended. Krextar immediately ordered his fleet to battle stations, but he knew they were vastly outnumbered. His fleet had 30 ships against 47 unknown human vessels. "All ships open fire," he commanded. The Caltharian fleet launched everything they had. Particle beams, plasma torpedoes, and gravity missiles streaked toward the human ships. The weapons should have been enough to destroy at least a dozen enemy vessels. Instead, the human ships seemed to ignore the attacks completely. Energy beams simply vanished when they hit the black hulls. Missiles exploded harmlessly against shields that appeared to bend space itself. Then the human ships began to fire back. The genocide launched a single projectile that looked like a small metal sphere. When it reached the Caltharian flagship Mighty Fang, it passed through the ship's shields as if they did not exist. A moment later, the entire vessel collapsed into a perfect sphere of super-dense matter, crushing everyone aboard instantly. Another human ship called Warcrime released clouds of tiny objects that swarmed toward the Caltharian fleet. When they reached their targets, the microscopic attackers began consuming the ships from the inside out. Hull plates, weapon systems, and crew members were all converted into raw materials within minutes. A third vessel named Species Ender fired a weapon that created a localized time distortion field. 3 Caltharian ships aged several centuries in seconds, their hulls corroding and their crews dying of old age before they could scream. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Caltharian Third Fleet had been destroyed. Krextar found himself aboard a life pod, one of only a few dozen survivors from 30 ships and over 100,000 crew members. As his life pod drifted in space, he watched the human ships move away toward the next Caltharian fleet position. They moved with mechanical precision, like a swarm of predatory insects following a scent trail. The communication system in his life pod activated, showing Captain Webb's face again. "Admiral Krextar, you are one of the few Caltharians who will survive this day. I want you to remember what you see here. Your empire attacked a medical ship. You killed doctors, nurses, and 40,000 civilians. This is the consequence of that choice. You cannot destroy our entire civilization." Krextar shouted. "We have hundreds of ships and billions of people. We built these ships during Earth's resource wars when our own species was trying to extinct itself. They were designed to ensure that if humanity died, we would not die alone. Today, you threatened our medical personnel and our civilians. You declared war on human mercy itself." Captain Webb's voice was calm and cold as winter. "We are going to show you why we kept these weapons sleeping in the dark between stars, why we hoped never to use them again, and why attacking those who choose peace is the most dangerous thing you can do in this galaxy." The communication ended. Krextar watched the human fleet disappear into hyperspace, heading toward Caltha Prime and the heart of his empire. He knew that by tomorrow, the Caltharian Empire would no longer exist as a galactic power. And it had all started when they made the mistake of firing on a hospital ship. Emperor Zethkar sat on his ancient throne in the heart of Caltha Prime, watching his empire die on the holographic displays around him. In just 18 hours, the human sleeper fleet had destroyed over 200 Caltharian warships without losing a single vessel of their own. The reports coming in from across Caltharian space painted a picture of systematic destruction. The humans were not conquering territory or demanding surrender. They were simply erasing every Caltharian military asset they could find. Shipyards became clouds of scrap metal. Orbital defense platforms were reduced to their component atoms. Entire fleets vanished without a trace. "Your Majesty," said General Vexmoth, the highest-ranking military officer still alive, "we must evacuate the capital. The human fleet will arrive here within 6 hours." Emperor Zethkar looked at his old friend with tired eyes. He had ruled for over 2 centuries, built an empire that spanned 40 star systems and commanded respect from dozens of alien species. Now it was all ending because one of his admirals had fired on a hospital ship. How many ships do we have left? Perhaps 30 vessels scattered across the outer systems. Most of our commanders are hiding in asteroid fields or nebulae, afraid to show themselves. The Emperor closed his eyes and remembered the report from Admiral Krextar 3 days ago. The destruction of a human medical ship had seemed like a minor incident, a simple message to discourage human expansion into Caltharian space. No one had imagined it would lead to this. "General, open a communication channel to the human fleet commander. Your Majesty, they may not accept your surrender." "I am not offering surrender. I am trying to save what remains of our people." The holographic image of Captain Webb appeared in the throne room. The old human looked exactly the same as he had 18 hours ago, when this nightmare began. His cold blue eyes showed no emotion as he studied the Caltharian Emperor. "Your Majesty, I am Captain Marcus Webb of the Genocide. You wish to speak with me?" Emperor Zethkar stood up from his throne, something he had not done for a foreign leader in 50 years. "Captain Webb, I offer the complete and unconditional surrender of the Caltharian Empire. We will pay any reparations you demand and accept any terms you choose to impose." "Your Majesty, we are not interested in your surrender." The Yao words hit the Emperor like a physical blow. "Then what do you want?" "We want to ensure that no Caltharian military vessel ever threatens human medical personnel again. Your admiral fired on a hospital ship. He killed doctors and nurses who were there to save lives. He murdered 40,000 civilians, including children." Captain Webb's voice remained calm and emotionless. "We are going to make certain that such an attack never happens again. Captain, please. We made a mistake. Admiral Krextar exceeded his authority. We will punish him and ensure that all our commanders understand the protection of medical vessels." "Your Majesty, you are missing the point. This is not about one admiral or one mistake. This is about the character of your civilization. Your people saw expansion by a peaceful species and decided to respond with murder." The Emperor felt desperate. "What can we do to stop this destruction?" "Nothing. The time for negotiation ended when you fired the first shot at the Hippocrates." Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the capital city. On the displays around the throne room, 47 massive shapes appeared in the space around Caltha Prime. The human sleeper fleet had arrived at the heart of the Empire. "Your Majesty, this is your final lesson in the consequences of attacking those who choose mercy over violence." The communication ended. Emperor Zethkar watched as the human ships moved toward the orbital shipyards that had built the Caltharian fleet for 3 centuries. The shipyards were massive structures, each one capable of building dozens of warships simultaneously. The ship called Species Ender fired a single weapon at the largest shipyard. Instead of an explosion, the entire structure simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next moment there was empty space where millions of tons of metal and equipment had been. Other human ships targeted the remaining military installations around Caltha Prime. Weapons that defied understanding turned battle stations into dust and reduced defense platforms to their component molecules. But the humans did not fire on the planet itself. They did not attack civilian targets or population centers. They focused entirely on military assets, leaving the Caltharian people alive but completely defenseless. General Vexmoth studied the tactical displays with professional interest, despite his fear. "Your Majesty, They are not trying to conquer us or destroy our people. They are surgically removing our ability to make war. What kind of military strategy is that? The strategy of a species that understands the difference between eliminating a threat and committing genocide. Within 4 hours, every military installation in the Caltha Prime system had been destroyed. The human fleet then spread out across the remaining Caltharian territories, hunting down the scattered survivors of what had once been a proud military force. Captain Webb's face appeared on the Emperor's communication system one final time. Your Majesty, the Caltharian Empire as a military power no longer exists. We have destroyed your ability to project force beyond your own star systems. Your people are free to continue their civilization, but you will never again threaten human, medical vessels or civilian populations. Captain Webb, how can we rebuild? How can we defend ourselves against other enemies? That is not our concern. You chose to attack healers and murder children. The consequences of that choice are permanent. The Emperor felt ancient and defeated. What happens now? Now you learn to live in a galaxy where actions have consequences. We are installing automated monitoring systems throughout your territory. If any Caltharian vessel approaches within 100 light-years of a human medical ship, it will be destroyed automatically. Captain Webb paused, and for the first time, the Emperor saw emotion in his eyes. It was not anger or hatred. It was disappointment. Your Majesty, humanity expanded peacefully across the galaxy because we chose to be healers and explorers rather than conquerors. We sent medical ships to treat your wounded. We offered friendship and trade. Your response was to murder our doctors and our children. We were afraid of human expansion. We thought you were taking our territories. The galaxy is vast, Your Majesty. There are millions of worlds suitable for life. Fear does not justify the murder of innocents. The communication ended for the last time. Emperor Zethkar sat back on his throne and contemplated the ruin of everything he had built. In 3 days, his empire had fallen from a major galactic power to a collection of defenseless worlds. The human sleeper fleet disappeared as suddenly as it had arrived, vanishing into hyperspace and leaving the Caltharian people to contemplate their future. News of the Empire's destruction spread quickly across the galaxy, carried by traders and travelers who had witnessed the systematic dismantling of Caltharian military power. Other alien civilizations took note of what had happened. The peaceful humans who sent medical ships and exploration vessels had revealed another side of their nature. They were capable of violence beyond imagination, but they used it only to protect their healers and their innocent. 6 months later, the new human, medical ship Hippocrates II was launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. It carried the same mission of mercy as its predecessor, to heal the wounded and help the sick regardless of their species or allegiance. But now, invisible to most sensors, shadows followed every human medical vessel through space. Ancient Guardian, ships with names like Genocide, Warcrime, and Species Ender, patrolled the darkness between stars. They had returned to their long sleep, but their artificial intelligences maintained constant watch over the galaxy's most peaceful profession. Captain Marcus Webb had returned to his farm in Montana, but he kept his communicator active. If another alien government made the mistake of attacking human medical personnel, he would answer the call again. The sleeper fleet would wake, and the galaxy would be reminded once more that those who choose mercy are not weak. They are simply strong enough to choose something other than violence. But they are also strong enough to choose violence when mercy itself comes under attack. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson from the fall of the Caltharian Empire. Those who heal deserve protection. Those who harm healers face consequences that last forever. And somewhere in the cold darkness beyond Pluto, humanity's most terrible weapons continued their patient watch, ensuring that the lesson would never be forgotten.